I am Natisha Dukhi. I have a PhD in public health, and my focus areas of work are predominantly nutrition, child and adolescent health, but I'm also majorly invested in the science diplomacy space, and that is because I work in this science policy interface, and I think it's crucial for me. Co-creating whatever my research may be around, whatever discipline it or whatever area of public health it may be in, needs to be focused on working at the grassroots levels with community, but embedding a communication, embedding policymakers at the very beginning for me is crucial. So working at the science policy interface has been a continuous journey for me and one that I really enjoy. So I think science diplomacy for Africa is not new. But at the same time, it's where on the continent do we see ourselves as researchers, as diplomats, as policymakers, and how we find ourselves in the science diplomacy space and engage research. For me, it's particularly important, especially in engaged research, because we need to work at the grassroots level. I think it's important to embed communities from the very beginning of research, because we cannot wait to differentiate when we get each other involved. Research takes a long time. Policymakers do not have that space or time to wait 3 to 5 years for evidence or results. So I think being inclusive of policymakers, researchers, scientists, and the communities that we're going to work with and for, not on, is crucial so that we start to align our needs and in terms of those timelines, rather than trying to push for something because a policymaker may need it or because we're looking at the urgency of the matter in terms of a community. I think the HSRC has brought upon a timely and crucial summer school that's important not just for researchers and scientists, but also for diplomats. As I've said previously in my talk, was that we need to train scientists as diplomats, but equally we need to train diplomats in science. We need to be speaking the same language, and currently there are gaps. And in order for us to achieve and fulfill those gaps, that common language of science diplomacy is what needs to bring us together. So I think this summer school is crucial. It's also important for early career scientists and mid-career scientists. I think it's important because as we move forward in our research, we need to be inclusive of science diplomacy. And as we know, there's various forms of diplomacy unfolding. We heard earlier today about economic diplomacy. We hear about education diplomacy. So science diplomacy, global health diplomacy, they are not synonymous. They can speak to each other, but we need to work on each of them as separate entities and address them as separate entities. My first priority topic would have to be an Afrocentric science diplomacy. My second would be of moving away from techno transfer from the global north and how we on the African continent push for co-creation. So I think if you're listening out there, if you're a diplomat, if you're somebody in science, you're a researcher, you're a scientist, or even if you are someone just curious to understand science diplomacy in a better way, I think this is your chance to come to the summer school. That is one of the pivotal things that the HSRC has engaged in this year. And I think this is a time and a space for all of us to start talking to each other, but more importantly, talking the same language. And I think science diplomacy has that space. So please look out for the application that's going to come out soon, apply, and be part of that Voice of Africa.